Welcome to Community Forum. I'm your host, Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, and it gives me great pleasure today to welcome Easton's veteran agent, Cory Ahonen, and he has been a wonderful asset to Easton's veterans, but also to the community at large. So today we're going to meet him on a personal level and on a professional level. So welcome to Community Forum. And welcome, Cory.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Yeah, so nice to see you here in the studio. I've just met you in the Veterans Office. And tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up and what your interests were and how you got involved. Was it in the military?
Sure, yeah. So, I grew up on the Cape, graduated high school, and had some plans, to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and looked into some college opportunities. And I ended up deciding after working for a year, I joined the Air Force, and I was enlisted as a security forces member in the Air Force, which is law enforcement, military police, security, and I ended up doing some other jobs within that as like corrections and things like that. And I was in the Air Force on active duty for a little over 6 years. And after getting out, went back to school at Bridgewater State University. Mm-hmm. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology and my master's in public administration. All during that time, I've been here with the town of Easton for coming up on 2 years in March. And all during the time I was in undergrad and graduate school, I was also serving veterans on the educational benefits side of things. I was working in the office there. That's kind of where I got my roots in this field, and kind of have grown into the position I'm in today. So, so it's been a kind of a, organic processes coming to this position, it's been exciting, and I'm really happy with the work I'm doing.
Well, I had no idea. My goodness, you're overqualified for the job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So your master's in public administration really prepared you for administrating the veterans' benefits, and
absolutely.
And then your psychology undergrad benefited you in your relationships with the veterans, because I'm sure you see people who are very happy and positive and balanced, and then you see people who are suffering from the effects of their military service.
Absolutely. I see the whole range from the veteran who's just coming off active duty and is looking into how to best utilize their benefits or just become aware of their benefits, to the widow or widower of a veteran as well. So we serve, I would say I serve approximately 50-50 with dependents of military veterans and military veterans themselves. So the psychology piece has been very useful in doing my job and kind of being able to manage and keep people focused on what we kind of meet, the reasons that we meet for. And that kind of segues into what kind of services I guess are offered by the office. So we have benefits from federal, state, and local government. So the federal benefits are kind of what we're most familiar with when we think about veterans benefits: the GI Bill, educational piece, vocational benefits, vocational rehabilitation, which falls under education. There is the VA offers many benefits toward, disability compensation for any conditions that occurred in or were worsened by military service. And there's really, the list goes on. There's medical benefits, there's burial benefits, there's benefits for low-income, low-asset veterans that we offer as well. That's one of the bigger things that I do in the town.
Mm. Yes, I know several people who have benefited from the services of the Veterans Office, and they were services that they didn't know they were eligible for.
Yeah.
So maybe you could list some of those that maybe people aren't aware of, besides the one you just mentioned.
Right, yeah. So I think, and I'll refer to my sheet here that I have written out a few notes, just because these numbers do change. Every year they change to go with the cost of living adjustments that occur with Social Security and medical benefits and things like that. So the benefit that I believe you're referring to that's most available to our local veterans in Easton and dependents of veterans as well is the Chapter 115 assistance program. That is for a single income household of $2,081. This is gross. These are gross numbers that we use as well. So if you're close to these limits, I'm more than happy to meet with you and let you know what you may qualify for otherwise. But the income limit for a single person, $2,081.
That is per month, isn't it?
Per month. And assets of $5,000. Now, the assets, it gets a little tricky, and there's probably a lot of questions that go along with that. But generally, if you have more, if you have under $5,000 in the bank, or IRA, stocks, bonds, trusts, things like that, of value less than, combined value of less than $5,000, you qualify. Everyone qualifies to apply. I like to say that, like, don't disqualify yourself in the parking lot before you come meet with me. Let me prepare an application, and we'll get the final word from the state is probably the best way to go about it.
And the asset doesn't include your home, does it?
No, it doesn't include your home. It does include a second vehicle, but as we know, vehicle valuations are usually far below what the actual value is. So it doesn't tend to hurt you at all unless you have some sort of, Rolls Royce or something like that sitting in the garage. But yeah, so, and then to go on a married couple. So that single, that I want to make clear, that is for a veteran themselves or the surviving spouse of a veteran.
Okay, so the surviving spouse benefits does she or he benefit to the total extent that the spouse would have benefited?
Absolutely. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So a common scenario would be a married couple. Let's just say, for this example, a male veteran and a female spouse. And even if they have dependent children, the whole family is covered under this benefit.
Wow.
It includes submitting, medical bills, dental bills, emergency home repairs in certain cases, hearing aids, monthly prescriptions. It's really an amazing benefit that it can go pretty far. So before I get too off track, I want to just mention the married income limit. So for a married couple, and I should mention, the single, you cannot be remarried.
Oh.
You have to be, yeah, unfortunately. So for married couple, $2,818 gross income per month and $9,800 assets. So
that's not that much more, is it, for two people?
it's a little more. I mean, it's a little less. Well, the income is
Right.
not even close to double, but the assets become a little higher.
Right.
And there's all these little caveats to it. It's a very confusing program, but that's the first qualifiers, I should say. If you're somewhere close to that, please give me a call, and I'd be glad to meet. If someone is way beyond those limits, I would say it's probably not worth their time. I have all the time to meet. I'll make time to meet with anyone and explain what's going on. But I think for the individual applying, it's probably not worth their time to.
So it's $2,080, you said, for the single?
$2,081.
$81 for the single, and $2,880.
$2,818.
18
And you
for a
can,
married couple.
And you can see those rise by about $1, $1.50, $2.
Right.
1 to 2%. With the fluctuating COLA adjustments and things every July. So that's a state benefit that I administer on the local level.
Okay.
And that amount, I mean, throughout the year, our budget looks like $250,000 per year for that benefit.
Okay, and then also, you have a discretionary fund, isn't that true?
Yes.
And can you explain that to the listening audience?
Right, so the discretionary fund is reserved to reimburse veterans or family members of veterans living in Easton for costs of daily living that, basically to help in an emergency situation and to help ensure the dignity of those individuals. So we recently adjusted the definition to include that, to ensure dignity, to kind of include a little more latitude as to what, because what constitutes an emergency is, just to provide some clarity there. So, and we also extend that benefit to National Guard and reservists who, had prior service. And basically, the reason for that is because they're not included in a lot of the definitions of a veteran. So just because you served, you may not necessarily qualify for certain federal or state benefits as a veteran, but in the town of Easton, we make sure that if you've served in any capacity, you qualify for something. So if you come to me in need, you will not leave empty-handed. But on that, I can issue up to $500 prior to select board approval, and anything above that, I would have to go to select board and request the approval for that. So.
Can you give us some examples, without mentioning names, of course,
Sure.
of some of the veterans who've come in recently, or since in the past 2 years since you've been in operation here in Easton? Can you give us some examples so that people have a genuine idea as to what really constitutes an emergency?
Sure, yeah. So, a veteran who has been hospitalized for 30 plus days, they come home to their home and they live alone, or they, maybe they live with a spouse that has gone to stay somewhere else while they've been gone, and they come home to, the food in their refrigerator has gone bad in that time. That's a situation where I would be able to utilize the discretionary fund, particularly the grocery store gift cards that we accept, and we receive quite a bit of. Those are the quickest way to reimburse someone. But this individual comes home after 30 plus days, and they're able to have a fresh loaf of bread, fresh gallon of milk, those basic necessities to kind of get them back welcomed home, instead of them having to worry about if they have enough food to eat for the next day and a half or 2 days or even a week. They can focus on their recovery from whatever condition that they...
And who goes out and buys those things and brings them to the home?
I would do that if it came to that situation, or if there were a family member maybe who came. Basically, whoever makes the call for the emergency. Someone would call me and say, there's this situation. If I'm not already aware of it, I would offer to them, to do those services, and I would make sure it got done either way.
And who supplies the funds for this discretionary fund?
The discretionary fund is completely donation based. So I haven't found any grants for that. If I do come across those, that'll be another funding source. But it's completely donation based. And what happens is I'll receive donations. Usually they're, the people wish to remain anonymous, but I have on my webpage on the Easton .ma.us website, under Veterans Services, I will list the donors' names, unless they specify they want to be anonymous.
Well, I know I'm a member of the Easton Grange.
Yes.
And we donate every year a substantial amount.
Of course you do. Yes, it's always appreciated.
Yeah, and it's always a unanimous vote because we appreciate the service and putting themselves, many of them, in harm's way in the past. So now that dignity portion, what sorts of examples can you give us of people whose dignity needs to be restored or maintained? So
the most recent example, and I would probably say the strongest example I have of maintaining a veteran's dignity, is an individual who was receiving benefits through my office already. We had already determined their financial standing and their eligibility there, had passed away. And the family had made arrangements, and we had met to discuss what services I could provide. And basically those were, there's a presidential memorial certificate. I applied for the VA grave marker and headstone, and then other benefits. And the grave marker and the headstone came in, and it was this big, they selected white marble stone. It was beautiful, probably almost the length of this table and about 200 pounds, and it got delivered to my office, and unfortunately it had to sit in my office for months because the family could not afford the fee to install the marker in the cemetery. Now, under the old definition of what the discretionary fund was used for, it was a great definition. It just didn't cover situations like that. I mean, that's not, exactly an emergency. That doesn't quite meet there. But that is the ultimate dignity for a veteran,
Right.
is to mark this grave with the proper headstone that's been furnished by the government. You know, that's the ultimate, his final dignity. So I would say that's my example of using those funds. So we use those funds to pay for the installation fee, which, you know.
So were you instrumental in inserting those words regarding dignity into the legislation that?
Oh, yes. Myself and Kristen Kennedy, Director of Health and Community Services, we came up with the additions and little changes to the discretionary fund based off of what I was noticing in the community serving the veterans. Was, you know, I was having to have conversations with, I'm going to call them veterans, you know, whether they meet the definition or not. And I would have to say, unfortunately, sir, ma'am, you do not meet the definition, the state's definition of a veteran to qualify for these certain benefits. And that's a hard conversation to have, to tell someone that their service doesn't count for, you know, and I would always.
Yeah, excuse me, what types of military service doesn't qualify?
So might be easier to just quickly just run down the definition. It's 180 days of active duty service. And the active duty part is what differentiates. So it's 180 days active duty service during peacetime, and 90 days during active duty during wartime, which is technically where we are right now. So active duty other than training, which becomes difficult because a lot of National Guardsmen and reservists, they will be activated for their training only, unless they're deployed or, you know, activated, and they could be activated in the state, or they could be serving in an active role down the street, or they're activated in their, you know, in Georgia or something like that. So, but generally, if you're serving your weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, that is for training only. So that.
Now, I happen to know an individual who just missed that 180 days of active service, and so is there any leeway?
No, there is no leeway. That's
so if it's 179 days, you're out. You're not in the ball game.
Right, but there may be. I mean, I'm sure that particular situation's been worked out. But I had a situation in my previous role at Bridgewater State University where a National Guard soldier had, or it was an airman actually, National Guard airman. He had multiple trips, 1 day, 2 days at a time, over to Afghanistan or Iraq and back with his flight crew, and they all added up to 90 days, which is what he needed during this period of wartime. But he wouldn't have known that he was qualified as a veteran because he didn't have that 90 days straight, which is what you'd think of. He probably thought to himself, oh, that's a day here, a day there. But so there may be situations like that where, you know, but I've also heard of situations where people were activated for a forest fire, and they counted it as their annual training, and due to that administrative, you know, notation, it kind of ended up, they missed out on some benefits because of that.
So the bottom line is, make an appointment.
Yes.
And the number to call is
508-230-0690, and I'm extension 3.
Extension 3. And that number is the Council on Aging.
Yes.
And that's where Cory has his office. If you go in the door, it's the second door on the right. And but you need to make an appointment because he's a busy guy. He has lots of people coming in, and including me, knocking on the door. So make an appointment and just go over your credentials to see whether you qualify.
Of course.
And what you qualify for. And of course, if you don't have the records of your service, I'm sure that you can find that out.
Yes.
He has the means to do that. And so do not miss out on benefits that you deserve and that you earned, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so in conclusion, can you give us some examples of Eastonites who've come in to you in say, the last month or several months, and what their experience with you and what benefits they earned?
Yeah, I mean, The experiences range. I get individuals I'll help out and they receive, a small amount of benefit, whether it's money or if it's, a discount they receive, and they're, the most grateful for that little piece. And then, there's others who maybe their expectations were a little higher and maybe a little disappointed. But, that's kind of the range. I would say overall, my assessment is that Easton veterans are getting what they need and are I'm more than accessible. I have an email address, a cell phone, a phone in my office, and if I'm there, I'll answer it. I don't avoid anyone by any means. So I would say overall, we're getting some great feedback.
Can you give one personal story of somebody who walked in and what you did for that person?
Okay. So we was a World War II veteran who, when I was first starting, I was working on his claim. An appeal is what it was, and there was a decision that was made by the VA that was not correct, and it was caught, and I had the help of another local veteran service officer who was training with me at the time, and we had identified the error that had happened, and we followed it through the appeals process, and him and his family were awarded a very large retroactive amount from the VA. And basically, they sent a thank you card and things like that, and that's very nice to receive thanks. But I get paid to do my job. I'm not, I love to do it, and I am very grateful when someone else is grateful to the work I provide. But I don't do it to be thanked or anything. But yeah, there's situations like that.
Right, and there's lots of satisfaction and that you receive in your job.
Definitely.
There's nothing better than working on a full-time basis, helping other people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is psychologically the best medicine for good health and
it really
happiness.
is. Yeah, it really is, and it's I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm loving it for sure.
Well, we in Easton are so happy and pleased that you're in this position.
Oh, thank you.
You have provided such wonderful service,
Thank
and veterans out there, you got to come and meet this guy.
Come on in.
Right. So the phone number is 508-230-0690.
0690. Yep. Extension 3. And like how we said before, feel free to show up if you don't mind a wait. I always say kind of like showing up anywhere without an appointment. You may expect a wait, but if you have an appointment with me, I guarantee you that dedicated time to work through whatever it is that we have at hand.
And one final note, the Council on Aging, where Cory has his office, is located in the Frothingham Memorial Hall, which is on Barrows Street. So, make your way there. But first call, make an appointment. Thank you so much, Cory,
for
joining us today on Community Forum. And you certainly have provided the community with such valuable information.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
And so those of you who are not veterans, but you know somebody who is, pass along this valuable information. And you can always see this program online anytime you want. So if you know a veteran, tell them to type in eastoncat.org and click on Watch, it's above, and then you click on Series. And I think I'm the last one in the series. You go all the way down and click on Community Forum, and there you will find several programs and choose the one with Cory Ahonen. Did I say that right?
You did.
Oh, good.
You got it.
Until next time, thank you for watching.